Shetty, and today I'll be talking about gRPC and protobuf in Python. This is me, Dishant Shetty. I'm a software engineer, and basically today in the talk, since we'll be talking about gRPC servers, we'll also be comparing.
सेमिनार नहीं आ रही 0 से 1 तक.
ठीक है, मैंने since we'll be talking about gRPC servers, we'll also be comparing how gRPC server reacts when we try to hit the server with hundreds and thousands of API calls. Also, we'll be comparing the performance of a gRPC server with a traditional JSON class server. There'll be a small benchmark of how hundreds and thousands of API calls are performing in when we are using a gRPC and when we are using a class server, right? So, gRPC and protobuf. So, for just a heads up, I'm fairly new to this technology, so I'll be open to all of your questions. But if any of your questions are left unanswered, feel free to connect me with after the talk. Right. So, I'm pretty sure many of you might have designed front ends, and many of you here have designed back ends, and you might have used JSON to communicate between those two services. JSON is basically it is a data format which is very popular in the industry. It is very popular in the industry, and it is basically used for the communication between like two servers, two services, and for the communication stuff. So as Shubham has already told about JSON, it is a simple key value pair. You can consider it like a Python dictionary. It is simple key value pair, human readable. It is very easy to understand and it is very easy to implement as well. So since JSON has been there in the industry for so long, I've been using JSON since the very start of my career, and I'm very big fan of JSON. But does that mean JSON is the silver bullet? Does that mean JSON is the solution to each and every problem statement we have? I guess no. So does that mean we only have the option to use JSON in each and every problem statement, in each and every architecture, be it monolithic or microservice architecture? So the answer is no. So few of the scenarios where JSON might not be the best choice for you is consider an example of a microservice architecture where like you have dozens of microservices, dozens of services. All the services are connected with each other in like a star topology pattern, and each and every service will have to respond to each and every request coming from all the other dozens of services. And in that particular architecture, the performance of each and every service will matter a lot, right? So JSON, even though you can use JSON in that type of architecture as well, but JSON is not the best option in that scenario. So this is what a simple JSON looks like, and this is what we can use as an alternative to JSON in such type of architectures, which is protobufs. So protobufs are basically these are basically sorry, one second. These are basically the small binary strings which can be used to transfer the data from one server to another. They are developed by Google. They are basically a language neutral mechanism developed by Google. They protocol buffer. So many people might confuse between a protocol buff and a protocol buffer file. So I'll be telling the difference between these two and we take into the conversation in the demo part. So since a protocol buff is a small binary representation of the data we are going to transfer, it is smaller than size when we compare it to JSON. So since that will also I'll be showing in the demo. So a little more about protocol buffer is. Since it is developed by Google, it got its syntax from a Go structure. So if you are familiar with Go, it will be very easy for you to grasp how a protocol buffer, you can write a protocol buffer file. Right. So when you are going to write a protocol buffer file, it basically consists of two main things. One is services and the other is messages. Messages is the part where you write the structure of the data which you are going to send over the wire, right? And the services is the part where you are going to mention the response of the that was like the service is like a function call. You are going to mention the function and the response type of the function and the request type of the function. And the response and the request type are the format of the messages you have already mentioned, right? So this is what a protocol buffer file is, and few of the advantages of a protocol buffer file and protocols are they are relatively smaller in size. Since I've already told you, consider an example of a monolithic application where you have to transfer JSON data from one service to another. When you are transferring JSON, the complete message, the complete JSON is transferred from one service to another. So that contains a lot of that is heavy. But in this case, when you are transferring a simple protobuf binary string, that is comparatively very smaller in size. Now, since it is very smaller in size, you will be saving a lot of bandwidth. And if you save a lot of bandwidth, it will be faster. It will be very fast for a protobuf to transfer from one service to another via network call. Right? Few of the other advantages of protobuf are they prevent schema violation, they prevent type safety. Schema violation in the sense is when you write JSON, you do not define the types of the variables you are passing in a JSON. But in this case, when you write a protocol buffer file, you have to specifically mention the data types of each and every attribute. You have to specifically mention the schema. You have to define the structure of the data you are going to send over the wire. Now, since you are mentioning the structure of the data, the error handling part in this case will be easier for you. Right. So, a few of the prerequisites before the demo is these are a couple of libraries you have to install, which are Protobuf, Google, and one of the compilers which you have to install to convert the protocol buffer file to the source code generated by Pro2C is what we call a Pro2C compiler. This is the command which we will be going to use to generate the code generate the code from the protocol buffer file. Right? And few rules which you should remember while writing a protocol buffer file and while working with protocol buffers and gRPCs. The auto-generated code from the protocol buffer files are the one which are mainly being used when you are implementing the servers and client. So those auto-generated code should not be modified by you. They should only be modified by the Pro2C compiler by the changes you are mentioned in the protocol buffer file. Right. Another thing which you should remember is every time you make changes in the protocol buffer file, you will have to recompile it so that the changes which you have done should reflect in the auto-generated code of gRPC files and the protocol buffer files. Right. So I hope you get a little clarity of protocol buffers. I'll be showing a little demo. So this is how a small protocol buffer file looks like. Is it visible now? Just a bit more. This is how a small protocol buffer looks like. So if you need any reference of this example, you can check the Google's documentation of protocol buffers. This is the exact same example. So as I've told you, protocol buffer files consist of two main things. One is the service and the other part is the messages. These messages are basically the structure of the data which you are going to send over the wire to other services. So let's suppose I make an object of person which consists of name, ID, email and other phone number and the phone numbers, right? This is a message. This can be a response type, this can be a request type, and that you will have to mention in the services. So you created a service of with a name detail service. Here you mention the request type and here you mention the response type. So in this service I mentioned that the request type is details which is a simple ID, and here I have mentioned person, which is the response type. So if you try to hit this service with a detailed message which consists of an ID, it will give the response of an object person, which will contains the data of the person, right? First I'll show you how you can convert this protocol buffer file into a protobuf, which is a simple binary string which will be transferred over the wire to the other services. Right. So as I've already told you, this is the command which we are going to use to generate the code, to generate the gRPC code. Here it goes the path to the proto file I've written. It automatically generates these two files, which are the Python representation of. Sorry, where are you guessing? Where?
The dots. Python out dot. gRPC Python out dot. And then
The path of the gRPC files which are where you have to say.
okay.
So these two are the these two are the gRPC files generated by the Proto-C compiler. These are basically the Python class implementation of the messages and the service we have written in the proto file, right? This file is the client and server representation, and this file is the representation of the messages we have written in the in this address.proto, right? So we have written three messages. One was person, the other one was detail, and the third one was phone number type, right? So these are the objects, person and detail. These are the objects which we can use both in the client side and the server side to create the object of these types, right? So I'll just quickly get into the shell, import everything, and show you how you can convert this gRPC file into a protobuf. So I've written here, I'll simply import everything. So this file contains that person message, right? The Python implementation of the person message we have written in the proto file. So we can simply import it like this and create an object. So this person variable is an empty object of the person type. We can add name to it like this. So since we have mentioned the data types of each and every attribute, so like the ID was of type integer. So if I try to save ID as a string, it gives an error. So the ID should be of type integer only. Similarly, email is this, and the last one type is the phone number types. So you can see here the phone number is a nested message. To save the nested messages of a message object, this is a type of syntax which you have to use, is like this, and save the numbers and the phone number type here. So now you can see I've saved everything in this person. This is the protobuf which we have created from the protocol buffer file. So if you want to see the size of this protocol buffer is, we can simply use this function byte size, and you can see it is of only 46 byte. I'll further convert this protocol buffer to a JSON and show you how what the size difference is. So you can remember this particular protocol buff is of 46 bytes, and the binary string which I was telling, which will be transferred over the wire, is you can get this using this function. serialized to string. So in case of JSON, the complete JSON message is going to will be transferred from one service to another. But in this case, this binary string will be going to transfer from one service to another, which is of only 46 bytes. So if I convert this protocol buff into JSON, I can simply use a function from this library. This will simply convert this protocol buff to JSON, message to JSON, and pass this protocol buffer. This is the JSON, and to get the size of this JSON, I can import this module and get the size of this JSON. And this is of 197 bytes. So you see the difference. When we are transferring a protocol buff, it is of 46 bytes, and when you are transferring a JSON of same data, that is of 197 bytes. So you see the difference in the size. So now since you are sending a very less data from one service to another, you will be saving a lot of bandwidth, and since we are saving a lot of bandwidth, the network also will be faster. So the communication between the different services will be faster as compared to the general services we can have, general communication we can have with JSON. Right. So this is the first part of the conversation. We can now move to the next part. I hope you are clear with how we can convert. Yes.
So in your address.proto, you have specified the proto buff version to be 3.
Right.
But your compiled file says EB2.
That is the auto-generated code. That is a boilerplate name of this auto-generated gRPC files. Even if you use version 2 of proto files, even if you use the syntax 3 of proto files, that will generate the code with the same name.
Okay.
Yes.
In what case should you use JSON over protocol?
It depends on service to services. The whole industry has been using JSON since a very long time. So it depends how many network calls you are going to make, what is the architecture of the application you are making. So consider a small application where there is a single server responding to the API calls from the user from front end, and you are expecting very few API calls, like 100 and thousands in a minute, very few. So in that case, JSON would be the best option for you. But specifically in this situation where which I am talking is a microservice architecture where dozens of services are there. All the services are expecting network calls from each and every services, and the performance of each and every service matters a lot. That is where gRPC and protobufs could be the better option.
One question about that proto file. So could we just switch over to that once?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, like, for the detailed definition that message of
Right.
could that be inline in the service part?
Mm-hmm.
Is that allowed? Like, does the syntax allow that?
No. You have to mention messages specifically, and so there are two parts of a protocol buffer file. One is messages. You have to define all the messages separately, and you have to define all the services separately. So one service you can consider as a one function API call, and all the messages are the structure of data you are going to pass over the wire. So details is the request type, person is the response type, and you have to write the structure of this request and response type separately in the same file. I hope you're clear. So this is the first part. Let's just quickly start the second part, which is of gRPC.
So what exactly in there is this protobuf? I am not clear.
Protobuf. So your question is what exactly is a protobuf? So this a crisp difference between a protocol buffer file and a protobuf is this is a protocol buffer file, and this binary string which we have generated using that protocol buffer file is called protobuf. This protobuf, this binary string is going to be transferred over the wire to other services, right? And this binary string will be used by other services to deserialize it and get the actual data out of it and use the actual data in any way they would want, right?
Protobuf is just a protocol, and the proto file is basically a schema.
Yes,
Go back to the base code. Go back to the base code. Why do files generated by the protocol? Why?
So, since there are two parts of protocol buffer files, one is messages and the other one is services. So we have two files for that. The PB2 file contains the Python representation of all the messages. We have person message here, detail message here, and phone number message here. And the other one is Python representation of class which we can use while implementing the server and the client. So this is the Python representation of the services we write. So we have written a get person service. The first class detail service stub is the client representation. We'll be using this class in the client side, and we have this class detail service servicer. This is the server representation of the service which we have written, and this will be using in the server side of the gRPC server.
So can you control the second file? So I don't want to generate the second file, the gRPC, right?
This one.
Yeah.
These. So if you do not want, why would you not want to generate the Python classes auto-generated code of the gRPC?
So basically, I don't want to. So all the basic features that we have, that is contained in address underscore pb2.py, right?
pb2.py contains the Python representation of messages you have mentioned in the address.proto.
Alright.
The messages are the structure of the data. So if you have the structure of the data, you would want an API call for, you would want a service for that as well.
Okay.
So that different services can communicate with this service, right?
So which file we are using in the cell?
In the shell we are using this pb2.py file.
Okay.
But I can actually skip gRPC, right? I don't want to communicate
Yeah,
with gRPC.
even if
it's optional.
I can show
That's
you.
my question.
Yeah.
These two files will be auto-generated, but if you want this pb2 underscore gRPC file to be empty, you can simply remove this service from here. So if I
And
remove,
I can still use protobuf to communicate,
yeah, you
but I
can,
have to manage the communication side.
right,
on my
right.
end.
You can still use protobuf to communicate, but if you do not want any service, a gRPC service, you can simply do not write any service in the address in this proto file.
That's my question. That's my answer.
So I have one question.
Yes.
So what is the workflow of using this protobuf? You create a protobuf buffer file.
Right.
You generate those two auto-generated files on client and on the server.
Yeah, these two files will be used both by the client and the server. So this is one of the drawbacks. This is one thing which you have to handle manually. Both client and the server should contain these auto-generated files of same version, so that they can use both the messages and.
There is the override of keeping them in sync.
Yes, you have to keep them in sync for both client and server.
That's one reason why it's not widely used.
Yes. Shall I move ahead?
Yeah.
So the next part of the conversation is since we are already familiar with protobuf now, we can move ahead with gRPC. So gRPC it is also developed by Google. It is a mechanism where one can remotely execute a function written on our machine onto others machine as if they are written on onto someone else's machine. So it is a little confusing mechanism, but you can consider it as a simple mechanism where one data is to be passed to another service over a wire. Two services are connected over the wire, we are writing a one function here that will be transferred to another, and that function will be used by other services remotely. That is what the name suggests, explains, remote procedure calls. So it is basically a transport mechanism on which we can put some data and send it to other party, and the other party will receive the data as in the form of protobufs, which I have already told you. Few of the advantages of gRPC are they are efficient in connecting the services in specifically microservices architecture, style architecture. So as the example I've already given you, you have dozens of services and all the services are connected with each other in a star topology, and they're communicating with each other. Now, since the response time is very fast, the performance could be great, and it would be very efficient for all the services, all the servers to communicate with each other. The other advantage of gRPC could be performance, as I already told you. And the other advantages is security. Since gRPC is built on the top of HTTP2, HTTP2 provides have some configurations inside it which provides better security. And one of the other advantages of gRPC is streaming services. So since both the auto-generated files will be used by client and server, they can be bidirectional communication. So it depends how you write the architecture, how you design the architecture of the application. You can design it as a unary architecture. You can design it the client is talking to the server, if the server is talking to the client, or it is a bidirectional communication. Both the client and server communicate with each other to and fro and send data and receive data concurrently. Other advantage of gRPC is code generation, auto-generated code, which I have already shown you. The Python implementation of the messages and the servers and the services we have written, and security. So since I've already told you, it is built on the top of HTTP2. HTTP2 provides a mechanism for extra security, so the API endpoints you are exposing will be more secure, since we have an end-to-end encryption and a DNS layer on the top of that. Right. So now we can go ahead with these two things, and the client and the server representation of gRPC. So here I have gRPC server, and I'll be using these two files to write the server for gRPC. So I'll simply import everything now here. Import proto. I've already imported everything. Let's import and so that we can compare. Right. So as I've already told you, these two are the classes which we are going to use. The first class is the client representation. We are going to use this stub class in the client side, and the servicer class is the one which we are going to use while implementing the server of gRPC. Right. So I'll simply copy this class. Write in the gRPC in the server, inherit the same class. Inherit the same class, and this is the service which we have written in address.get person. This service will be giving the response, and here it goes the logic. The logic we are going to define in the server. Right. Now the response type of this service was of type person, so we'll be returning person, right? And the logic goes here as will simply return this person object which we have already created in the shell. I'll simply copy everything which I've already shown you in the shell. person variable of type person. Right. So as I've told you, we have stub representation of a stub class which we will be using in client side. I've already written the code here. I simply copied it from here. So we'll here also create an insecure channel for the client. Save the stub. This was the stub which I've shown you in the gRPC file, auto-generated gRPC file. I'll be simply running hitting the server in a while loop until the time we reaches the count of 10,000 and start the timer before a while loop and exits and calculate the time how much time it took to complete 10,000 calls. Right. I'll copy everything from here and write it in the client side and see. So the server is running here. I'll open a new shell, activate the environment, and run the client. So this client will be sending 10,000. This client will be sending the sending the server with APIs. And you will see how fast it is. For 10,000 API calls, it took 3.39 seconds. So we'll just now compare it with how a JSON Flask server will behave. I'll simply create a Flask application which will simply consist of a endpoint which will return a JSON data, and will simply also create a client for Flask and also try to hit 10,000 API calls to the Flask server as well and compare how much time difference is there in both the servers. So for the Flask client, I've already written this. And we'll import Flask, create a Flask app, create a Flask function and return a JSON response. Flask server here. Python Flask server. I guess some other.
I think it's running the same code.
That is the problem. Everyone is already aware about Postman. You can use Postman to hit the API and get a single response. If I hit the server, I'll get this response in 29 milliseconds, which is comparable to what I have already shown you in Bloom RPC. So if you are hitting one request to a gRPC server and one request to a Flask server, it is very much comparable. But in gRPC, I have shown you 10,000 API calls took 3 point something seconds, and in Flask I will now show you. I'll create a client. Here also I'll run a while loop, and using the request module, I'll hit 10,000 API calls to the Flask server and calculate how much time it took to complete all the API calls. This is the code for the Flask client. The Flask server is running here, and I'll open a new shell and run the Flask client. Activate the environment. See, now you can clearly see how much time it is taking. So Flask took 13.14 seconds to hit 10,000 API calls, and the gRPC server took only 3 seconds to complete 10,000 API calls. So you can see the difference how fast a gRPC server can perform when you are connected in a microservice architecture. That's my time, guys. That is a comparison. I hope you are clear how a gRPC server behaves how you can write protocol buffer files, how you can implement a server, what are the auto-generated code generated by the Proto C compiler, and yeah, I'm open to questions.